Thank you, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here, and a big thank you to Tourism Australia and to Andrew for the invitation, and certainly to David for coming all this way for just 48 hours to speak with us. As an American African, I certainly respect the Australian rugby cricket team. David's comment.
You see, no, but I was too polite to say anything.
It is what it is. Our company's been in this market for over 40 years. Very well established brands and a great team, which I think says a lot about the people power in this country. We've always admired Australia and its great people. We're certainly more committed than ever to helping build inbound tourism. Certainly one of my personal favorite destinations to visit. Incredible character, climate, the atmosphere here, and I certainly believe it's the best cuisine in the world. So it has so much to offer, and obviously great wines as well. Like David, our company has a global perspective. In the last month alone, I've been in Paris, Moscow, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, London, Geneva, New York, and Tollman, Los Angeles. Our 25 brands represented in every major market, both from a selling standpoint as well as operating them. So we do get to work with many tourist boards, many travel agencies, and we certainly speak, say, to many different customers around the world. I think we all know we live in incredibly complex, fast-changing times, with natural disasters, global events such as the GFC, which affect all of us and make us constantly reassess our plans, our objectives, both in the public and the private sectors. My favorite slide here, which is something I took from David's 15-year-old son, whereas there is good, bad, and ugly issues out there to the Australian industry. The good is, as I said, it's an amazing destination, and the experiences on offer here are remarkable. As Andrew said, your natural asset is just brilliant. We have a warm, welcoming people. It's relatively good value, especially from Asia, having just been there. Very good infrastructure overall, great airlift. I just read yesterday that Singapore Airlines is launching a new low-cost long-haul, I think they're going to call it Scoot. 4 777s coming in from next April, and they're planning to grow that to 14 by 2016. It's great to know you've got very consistent government support for travel and tourism. And I think Tourism Australia's overall efforts have been fantastic over the years. It's also very important, I think, to have this very defined vision and goal of 2020, and planning to double your inbound tourism and overall revenues for the travel and tourism industry, $140 billion by then. As David has commented, this visa program is quite remarkable. In Shanghai last 2 weeks ago, I was talking to the Consul General from Mexico. They had 18,000 people visit Mexico this year, of which 17 were for business in terms of doing trade. So only 1,000 leisure travelers left China for Mexico versus 520,000 from China to Australia. So I think that's a fantastic testament to how well Tourism Australia is doing and how well this destination is seen out of such an important market as China. Obviously the US and European Schengen visa issues, as David touched on, are very difficult. Not just that, capacity issues in Europe are very difficult. We've seen in Europe this year, Paris, Rome. There is just no capacity from a hotel standpoint with the growth of business travel again, conventions, and leisure travel. So certainly Europe's going to be difficult, and America's almost impossible in terms of some of the visa issues that David touched on. And we anticipate the growth of up to 150 million outbound long-haul Chinese travelers in the next 3 to 5 years. It's remarkable the opportunities that there are. If you move to the bad, or what could be better, obviously the hotel infrastructure could improve. David touched on the taxes, and obviously every time one does that, it does affect the overall cost of someone outbound, or in some cases inbound. As the TRA stated, the industry report said, which is outside, which we've read, the industry can perform substantially better. It's a very cluttered, crowded destinational landscape out there. you look at this piece that was in the Sydney Morning Herald weeks ago on Switzerland alone, so 20 pages. Well, obviously that's Switzerland promoting Australian outbound. It is a good example of what they're doing everywhere. It's such a small country, but with an amazing effort as well. And it just reiterates how one always has to be on one's toes. Mexico spent 25 million US alone just in the United States in the first 8 months of this year, trying to restart their inbound tourism from the US. We've got a phenomenally savvy customer out there, constantly changing patterns on buying, their online research, and the different experiences. Having been in China, I keep hearing about how the tourist is becoming much more savvy. I just heard from the CTS, for example, 600 individuals paying $100,000 US a person went to Kenya earlier this summer in order to experience the wildlife. So, not to contradict the ambassador here, certainly spent a lot more time in China himself, having spent a lot of time with agencies. It is a very fast-evolving market over there at the high end, and when you look at 150 million people who will be coming into long-haul traffic, it is very nuanced. Obviously, the strength of the Australian dollar hasn't been very helpful of late, especially in the US and against some other traditional currencies. There is a very strong perception in some Western markets that the US, or Australia, is just too far to go. I certainly think that has to be challenged. You don't have enough presence on the global stage, as David said earlier. The fact that there's not one company represented on the World Travel and Tourism Council body, I think speaks a lot. But again, a recommendation to Andrew for getting involved and spoken on the panels in Las Vegas this summer, and certainly before seeing him in Tokyo next year, and hopefully helping us get some of the industry involved in WTTC in the future. I think you also got to be careful not to put too many marketing resources into one major campaign, which doesn't necessarily have the legs to continue through 12 months, but you have so much consistent, ongoing messaging out there from all of these incredible destinations. And then some of the other, it's obviously the GFC. We certainly anticipate in the Western economies that we're headed for another recession, if not a double dip. We've certainly seen it in the US of late, where all of our brands are seeing substantial softening in bookings for outbound travel to Europe and elsewhere over the last couple of months. But that said, the recent softening of the AED should certainly help inbound tourism in the US. Certainly a lack of strong leadership in many governments to address these awful issues. And with the national election in the US next year, every 4 years we see a substantial downturn in outbound travel when there is a national election. Union issues, as David mentioned with QF, is certainly a problem. A lot of travel VA through Europe. Certainly saw the impact they had, as well as the inability for us to book British Airways over the last 18 months with their unreliability with the union problems. So again, Qantas certainly needs to fix it. That said, one is doing very well, all things considered, but there is an awful share of voice out there in terms of competition. So one does need to have very, very creative campaigns. They have to be emotive. And I think, having seen some of the recent work done by Tourism Australia, one does need a little more connection, both from an individual standpoint, someone looking at where am I going to spend my travel dollars, and also in terms of showing more of Australia. These are obviously URLs. I don't have the time to show some of these videos. Tourism Australia has these, but you just look at that list up there. Peru did an incredible campaign, which is a YouTube kind of documentary again of Peru, United States, with a whole bunch of Peruvians, and they demonstrated through music, culture, cuisine, everything that's special about Peru. Iceland's campaign is humorous, it's reverent. The Swiss campaign, I brought the video that's recently done to be with Andrew. Unbelievable, these two farmers who show the incredible diversity of Switzerland. A country we don't necessarily think of a great place to visit, and it doesn't have great diversity, obviously from the nature to the cuisine to the retail shopping and so forth. A very smart campaign, I think it's worth considering. Obviously, India has an incredible campaign going on, and that resonates everywhere I see it here. Malaysia, Mexico has done something with President Calderon, actually going out in the world tour is something that Jordan did a few years ago as well, which has had great resonance. I mean, everyone's familiar with Las Vegas and their great, whatever happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. But they're constantly changing and updating their program and what the destination offers, being from families 10 years ago back to art, gaming, and the MICE industry today. Visit Jamaica with Mr. Bold, now representing their campaign, and an example of something else, and then obviously New Zealand, the 100% pure campaign, has had great consistency for a long time. I think one has to be careful again to be fresh. All the time in the US, with the New York Times, the LA Times, every Qantas ad I see is something like this. The typical tagline is Sydney is waiting for you, the photograph of the Opera House. It's so much more to Australia, as you know better than I do, than that. And it's just an example, obviously it doesn't relate to tourism in Australia, but those companies that are selling Australia as to the different messages and nuances I think that have to be offered. And I think that's a key issue. It has to be regional, and it has to be cultural issues. I mean, being in Beijing and Shanghai, they're looking for very different things, from cuisine to experiences. And certainly living in Los Angeles, I can't tell you the number of people I speak to who say, I'm not going to Australia this year because it's just too far away. But it's ridiculous because it's 1 to 2 hours further away than London, Paris, or any other major city in Europe. And yet no one thinks twice about getting on a plane for 11 hours to one of those cities. But every time I hear someone saying, I'm not going to Australia this year, I'm going to put it off later. Certainly living in the US and carrying a passport, it's disturbing for me to see with our strong presence there as well, the decline in US business. And again, I would just ask us all to be careful that we don't focus too much on China. It's obviously an incredible emerging market, but these numbers are disturbing when you look at the 8-month totals from Tourism Australia, as well as the rolling 12 months. Whereas out of the US, we saw growth to France and Italy this year. Social media, we all get it, we're all doing a lot. I was in Beijing recently and I met with SA Tourism, they did an incredible job from a social media standpoint. They sent 12, 15 celebrities from China to South Africa with a camera to put this book together, which they've run out of copies twice now. And also did an amazing social media campaign where they got them to identify the tips, some of the experiences they came up with, and each of them spoke about their experiences there. So very powerful, and again, just an example of what some of the companies are doing out there. You can certainly depend on us. We launched this year a new brand in Australia called Inspiring Journeys. It's up on what the lady asked. We're certainly highlighting some of the incredible Indigenous and local experiences of Australia, and the wonderful stories one can have when you truly experience Australia. I head to Tasmania this weekend, experiencing it myself as a journalist, and certainly look forward to taking it further into the international markets. We presented it in China this past month. We'll certainly continue to roll it out. I think Tourism Australia has some great energy and new direction under Andrew, and I think that certainly needs to be continued. But I think one always has to challenge oneself to be better and faster in terms of the initiatives and working with industries such as ourselves, coming up with campaigns or adapting campaigns as the market changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Please thank Brett Tollman.